morning, High Tides. Happy Earth Day to all of you. What is Earth Day?
Each year, Earth Day, April 22nd, marks the anniversary of the birth of the modern environmental movement in 1970. The idea for a national day to focus on the environment came to Earth Day founder Gaylord Nelson, then a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, after the 1969 massive oil spill in Santa Barbara, California. Inspired by the student anti-war movement, he realized that if he could infuse that energy with an emerging public consciousness about air and water pollution, it would force environmental protection onto the national political agenda. On April 22, 1970, 20 million Americans took to the streets, parks, and auditoriums to demonstrate for a healthy, sustainable environment in massive coast-to-coast rallies. Thousands of colleges and universities organized protests against the deterioration of the environment. Groups that had been fighting against oil spills, polluting factories and power plants, raw sewage, toxic dumps, pesticides, freeways, the loss of wilderness, and the extinction of wildlife suddenly realized they shared common values. As 1990 approached, a group of environmental leaders asked Dennis Hayes to organize another big campaign. This time, Earth Day went global, mobilizing 200 million people in 141 countries and lifting environmental issues onto the world stage. Today, the fight for a clean environment continues with increasing urgency as the ravages of climate change become more manifest every day.
Today is 420, also known as Mary Jane Day. It's from the Earth, but there are also a lot of controversies about it. Let's hear it. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, is a psychoactive drug derived from various strains of the cannabis plant intended for medical, recreational, and spiritual use. The most important component of marijuana is THC, the ingredient that enables users to get a high. Cannabis can be used by smoking, vaporizing, mixed with food, or as an extract with a typical high lasting 30 to 60 minutes and creating a sense of euphoria. Did you know that there is evidence of marijuana use dating back as far as 3000 BC on the island of Taiwan? Many people support the use of marijuana on a medical basis. Evidence suggests that marijuana is capable of reducing nausea, helping the process of chemotherapy, increasing the appetites of those with eating disorders, and treating chronic pain and muscle spasms. Other proponents of marijuana use claim that it is relatively harmless and is an enjoyable form of relaxation. It is also said that marijuana increases libido, however, this is far from the truth, having adverse effects on performance. Other negative impacts of marijuana include long-term memory impairment, reduced sexual performance, bronchitis, potential lung cancer, and possible addiction. Aside from reasons of use and its many effects, marijuana also carries a large cultural influence in the U.S. One generally accepted story for the prominence of 420 being associated with marijuana is that of 5 high school students that searched for an abandoned strain of marijuana, meeting every day at 4:20 p.m. 420 is also a day adopted by counterculturalists. These counterculturalists use marijuana specifically on April 20th to protest the illegality of marijuana, with many arguing that if smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and easily purchasing opioids are all legal, marijuana should also be legal. Marijuana is also largely prevalent in modern youth culture, a popular theme in much of modern pop and hip-hop. There are changes happening with marijuana, and everyone has an opinion. 420 is not only just Marijuana Day, it's also an anniversary of one of the worst school shootings in America. Let's hear about it.
After so much harsh debate about mass shootings, sometimes the truth is hidden under opinions and aggression. But why do these tragedies happen? Many blame the problem on automatic weapons, mental health, or lack of security. So how do we prevent mass shootings in schools? The answers are complex and extremely expensive, and people might have to be willing to go farther than what is comfortable. Mass shootings happen in every nation, but none compare to the frequency of the United States. The reason for so many shootings compared to other countries can be pointed out to the amount of guns in America. A 2012 congressional research study found that there are approximately 310 million firearms in the United States. 114 million handguns, 110 million rifles, and 86 million shotguns, making it difficult to ban certain firearms and easy for them to fall into the wrong hands. Mass shootings have been connected to mental health, yet mental instability is not a good predictor of mass shootings. In a database of mass shooters, it has been seen that only 52 out of 235 killers in the database, or about 22%, had mental illnesses. Yet we must consider that the FBI labels a mass murder where 4 or more people are murdered in a single instance. This can include gang violence, armed robberies, and domestic altercations. This means that there have been 72 public mass shootings in the past 30 years. Mentally unstable shooters seem to be more violent and deadly. Mass shootings in the media hook other dangerous people to shootings. This is called the copycat phenomenon, which is when mass shootings inspire other shootings. This is why some do not disclose information on the shooters. People with mental health issues can be pushed over the limit with substance abuse. People without mental illness can be dangerous too. Extremist groups have been on the rise in America. Black and white nationalist groups, anti-LGBT groups, anti-Muslim groups, you name it. These groups cling on to the vulnerable and erratic, giving people irrational fear. Mental health problems can be fixed with proper help from specialists, which should be available and facilitated at all schools. If there is one thing pro-gun and pro-gun control people agree on, is that America has to face a mental health problem and stop stigmatizing mental health. We cannot afford to ignore situations along partisan lines.
It's an awful situation, and something must be done about it. The system works when we come together and work as one. Taxes have been an issue for years. Some of us pay, some of us don't. Some of us pay on time. What is tax day? Let's find out.
Hey High Tides, guess what April 17th is? It's tax day. Tax day is the deadline to file a citizen's income details to the IRS, also known as the Internal Revenue Service. Usually, tax day is on April 15th. However, this year is different. The deadline has been extended to accommodate holidays and other extreme weather conditions. Income taxes were first introduced in the U.S. in 1861. The first income tax was to help fund the American Civil War. Right after the Civil War, it was deemed as unconstitutional and was repealed in 1872. However, it was reintroduced by the Revenue Act of 1894. But then, in 1913, the 16th Amendment was ratified, which gave a clear way of a modern income tax system. You may wonder, how does tax day work? Well, a large amount of residents in the U.S. inform the IRS of all the income from the previous fiscal year. However, there are certain groups, such as certain veterans, some pensioners, as well as some low-income families, that do not have to file an income tax return unless they want to be able to apply for a certain type of income subsidy. Most Americans wait until their last moment to file their tax returns due to it being a very tedious process and requires a lot of patience. This process can be done physically or electronically. So High Tides, when you get a job, you're going to have to pay your own taxes. And hopefully, if you have a job, April 17th was your deadline. And if you don't pay your taxes, you'll be fined.
So pay your taxes, High Tides. You don't want to get fined. Have a good weekend and get some rest.